Hello everyone, and welcome to the Biblical Bookworm. My name is Elizabeth, and today I'll be talking about the book Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. It's one of the most popular evangelical books in existence, and it was published in 1952 by C.S. Lewis, which was around 12 years after he published The Problem of Pain, and I've already made a video where I talk about that book. In his book, C.S. Lewis only discusses mere Christianity, which is what all denominations have in common. And so he makes a case for Christianity as a whole and not a case for any specific denomination. The book consists of 4 books, the first one being Right and Wrong as a Clue to the Meaning of the Universe, where C.S. Lewis writes about the moral argument for God. First, C.S. Lewis says that everyone has an intuition what moral behavior is. For example, it's generally accepted that stealing is a violation of this moral law. Lewis argues that the moral law can be compared to scientific laws, like for example gravity or mathematics, as it was not contrived by humans. The difference is that it can be broken and ignored. After introducing the moral law, Lewis writes that thirst is a sign that people naturally need water, and there is nothing apart from water that can satisfy that need. He points out that earthly experience does not satisfy the human craving for joy, and that only God could satisfy it. He further explains that humans cannot know to yearn for something if it does not exist. C.S. Lewis also treats the objection whether moral law is just an instinct. Quote, "Suppose you hear a cry for help from a man in danger. You will probably feel 2 desires. One, a desire to give help due to your herd instinct. The other, a desire to keep out of danger due to the instinct for self-preservation. But you will find inside you, in addition to these 2 impulses, a third thing which tells you that you ought to follow the impulse to help and suppress the impulse to run away. Now this thing that judges between 2 instincts, that decides which should be encouraged, cannot itself be either of them. Feeling a desire to help is quite different from feeling that you ought to help, whether you want to or not." C.S. Lewis concludes that someone or something from beyond the material universe is directing us morally. With this reasoning, he says that he is not yet within 100 miles of the God of Christian theology, but it's a beginning. In the second book, Within Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis talks about what Christians believe. I've picked a few passages from that part of the book that I found most thought-provoking. First, C.S. Lewis argues for Christianity by saying that it is something one could not have guessed. If it was simple and predictable, that would have been a sign that humans just made it up. After that, C.S. Lewis proceeds with providing an explanation why God gave us free will. He says, quote, "Because free will, though it makes evil possible, is also the only thing that makes possible any love or goodness or joy worth having. A world of automata, of creatures that worked like machines, would hardly be worth creating." In the book, there is also a part that is known as Lewis' trilemma. The trilemma is that Jesus was either a liar, a lunatic, or a Lord. C.S. Lewis said that one cannot view Jesus as just a moral teacher without accepting him as God. And I would like to read another quote for you. "A man who was merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic on the level with a man who says he is a poached egg, or else he would be the devil of hell. You must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool, you can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God, but let us not come with any patronizing nonsense about his being a great human teacher. He has not left that open to us. He did not intend to." Lewis explains that as it is obvious to him that Jesus was neither a liar nor crazy, he says that however strange or terrifying or unlikely it appears, he has to accept the view that Jesus was and is God. The third book is called Christian Behavior, and again I picked some parts that most appealed to me. C.S. Lewis treats on how charity is an essential part of Christian morality. He refers to Ephesians 4:28, where it says that everyone must work in order to be able to give to those in need. So the New Testament gives us a reason here why we have to work and earn money at all. Lewis suggests as a rule of how much should be given that, quote, "I am afraid the only safe rule is to give more than we can spare. In other words, if your expenditure on comforts, luxuries, amusements, etc. is up to the standard common among those with the same income as your own, we're probably giving away too little. If our charities do not at all pinch or hamper us, I should say they are too small. There ought to be things we should like to do and cannot because our charitable expenditure excludes them." The author stresses that, contrary to common belief, the center of Christian morality is not sexual sin. He explains that, quote, "The utmost evil is pride. It was through pride that the devil became the devil. Pride leads to every other vice. It is the complete anti-God state of mind." Lewis also notes that the more proud we are, the more pride in others bothers us. He says, quote, "In fact, if you want to find out how proud you are, the easiest way is to ask yourself, how much do I dislike it when other people snub me or refuse to take any notice of me, or shove their oar in, or patronize me, or show off?" The point is that each person's pride is in competition with everyone else's pride. Pride gets no pleasure out of having something, only out of having more of it than the next man. C.S. Lewis writes about each of the Christian virtues, and I would like to read a quote on faith. "I'm not asking anyone to accept Christianity if his best reasoning tells him that the weight of the evidence is against it. That is not the point at which faith comes in. Now, faith, in the sense in which I'm here using the word, is the art of holding on to things your reason has once accepted in spite of your changing moods. That is why daily prayers and religious readings and church goings are a necessary part of the Christian life. We have to be continually reminded of what we believe. Neither this belief nor any other will automatically remain alive in the mind. It must be fed." The last part of Mere Christianity is called Beyond Personality, or First Steps in the Doctrine of the Trinity. Here, C.S. Lewis explains the need for theology, and while learning about religion from one's own experience and understanding is not enough. He says that to do that alone is like walking on a beach. It's a very real experience, but one has only a very limited view of what the beach or the ocean looks like. Theology is like a map of the beach. It is less real and less exciting, but if one desires to make progress in understanding religion, he or she has to use the map, which are, for example, doctrines of the faith. And the last passage I would like to touch upon is when C.S. Lewis talks about how Christian sexual morality is so unpopular, and he explains that as it is so contrary to human instincts, either Christianity is wrong or our sexual instinct. He then explains what, in his opinion, indicates that it is the human instinct that is perverted by comparing our instinct for food with the sexual instinct. You can get a large audience together for a striptease act, that is, to watch a girl undress on the stage. Now suppose you came to a country where you could fill a theater by simply bringing a covered plate on the stage and then slowly lifting the cover so as to let everyone see, just before the lights went out, that it contained a mutton chop or a bit of bacon. Would you not think that in that country something had gone wrong with the appetite for food? And would not anyone who had grown up in a different world think that there was something equally queer about the state of sex instinct among us? Now, let's get to my opinion on the book. I would give the book 10 out of 10 stars. In fact, it was one of my favorite books of all time. And I especially love how C.S. Lewis reasons. In fact, each time I read something and there was a thought in my mind like, yeah, but C.S. Lewis continued in his book by explaining the exact problem or question or objection that I had. And I would actually recommend the book to everyone. That's been it for today. See you next week. God bless and bye!